The history of Apple begins on April 1st, 1976, when Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne founded Apple Computer Inc. in Cupertino, California. Jobs had the vision of bringing personal computers to ordinary people, while Wozniak was the technical genius behind the project. Wayne, the third co-founder, soon sold his share of the company for just $800. The first product was the Apple I, a hand-assembled computer sold as a motherboard, without a keyboard, monitor, or case. It was created by Wozniak and sold for about $666.66. It was a modest success, but it caught the attention of investors. In 1977, Apple launched the Apple II, which represented a huge leap forward. It came fully assembled with a plastic case, keyboard, and color graphics, something rare at the time. It was a commercial success and established Apple as one of the leaders in the personal computer revolution. In 1978, the company continued to grow rapidly, hiring more employees and moving into larger offices. It also launched new versions of the Apple II and began developing the Apple III, focusing on business use. In 1980, Apple went public with an IPO, or initial public offering, which made Jobs and Wozniak millionaires and turned the company into one of the most valuable in Silicon Valley. At the time, it was the largest IPO since Ford in 1956. In 1981, Apple was already a consolidated company, but began facing challenges. The Apple III, released in late 1980, had serious technical and commercial issues which affected the company's image in the corporate sector. In 1983, Apple launched the Lisa, the first personal computer with a graphical interface and a mouse, something revolutionary for the time. However, its high price, almost $10,000, and limited performance led to poor sales. That same year, Apple hired John Sculley, then president of PepsiCo, as CEO after Jobs' famous question, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?" Meanwhile, Steve Jobs led a secret team inside the company called the Macintosh team, with the goal of creating an affordable personal computer with a graphical interface. The result was the launch of the Macintosh on January 24, 1984, an iconic moment marked by a commercial directed by Ridley Scott aired during the Super Bowl, inspired by George Orwell's book, 1984. The Macintosh introduced revolutionary innovations such as the use of a mouse and a user-friendly graphical interface. However, despite its cultural impact, initial sales did not meet expectations due to performance limitations and poor compatibility with software of the time. In 1985, tensions between Jobs and Sculley escalated. With the commercial failure of the Macintosh and internal conflicts, Apple's board sided with Sculley. Steve Jobs was removed from the Macintosh team and, shortly thereafter, officially left the company he had founded. After Steve Jobs left in 1985, Apple entered a new phase, marked by attempts to maintain its innovation pace, but also by a growing lack of clear strategic direction. In 1986, the company continued developing the Macintosh line, now focusing on better performance and advanced graphics. Apple computers became popular among graphic designers, publishers, and creative professionals, thanks to the success of programs like PageMaker, which helped usher in the era of desktop publishing. Apple also invested in peripherals like printers and monitors, trying to create a complete ecosystem. However, during these years, it started facing stronger competition, especially from MS-DOS-based PCs and, later, Microsoft's Windows. In 1987, Apple launched the Macintosh II, its first computer with color support and a more open architecture, aimed at professional users. During this period, the company tried to maintain an image of being cutting-edge and innovative, but began suffering from product fragmentation, high prices, and confusion in its computer line. In 1988, Apple also launched the Apple CD-ROM, betting on new media and invested in education and international markets. Even with strong profits, its market share began to decline. Throughout 1989 and 1990, the company tried to reinvent itself with new models like the Macintosh Portable, one of Apple's first laptops, but it was expensive and heavy, with poor sales. The focus on differentiation and control over hardware and software kept Apple distinct, but increasingly isolated from the mass market, dominated by the IBM Microsoft ecosystem. Although still profitable, Apple entered the 1990s facing serious challenges: slower growth, a confusing product structure, and loss of relevance against competitors. In 1991, Apple launched the PowerBook, its first modern notebook, a milestone in laptop design. That same year, the company partnered with IBM and Motorola to create the PowerPC platform, a new processor architecture for its computers. Despite these initiatives, Apple entered the 90s with significant difficulties. The company launched too many similar products, with confusing names and little differentiation. This resulted in an inflated and confusing product line, hurting the market strategy. In 1993, John Sculley was replaced by Michael Spindler as CEO. In the same year, Apple launched the Newton, a pioneering personal digital assistant, which, despite being innovative, suffered criticism for its poor accuracy and high price. From 1994 to 1996, Apple continued losing market share to PCs running Windows 95 and Intel processors. The company accumulated losses, and leadership was unstable. Spindler was replaced by Gil Amelio in 1996. In an attempt to save the company, Amelio decided to acquire Next, a company founded by Steve Jobs after his departure from Apple. The acquisition was completed in 1997, and with it, Jobs returned to Apple, initially as an advisor but soon taking control. Amelio was fired and Jobs became interim CEO. From there, Apple underwent a transformation. Jobs simplified the product line, cut costs, and forged strategic partnerships, including a controversial deal with Microsoft, which invested $150 million in Apple and continued to provide Microsoft Office for Mac. In 1998, Apple launched the iMac, a colorful compact computer with a revolutionary design. It was a resounding success and symbolized the company's new era. In 1999, the iBook, a notebook for the general public, and Airport, wireless internet technology, were introduced. In 2000, Steve Jobs officially became CEO. With a clearer product line, innovative design, and a renewed focus on quality and simplicity, Apple moved from the brink of bankruptcy to begin its journey toward industry dominance. In 2001, Apple took an audacious step. It left the computer market and entered the music world with the launch of the iPod. Small, elegant, and capable of storing thousands of songs, it became a phenomenon. That same year, the company opened its first Apple stores, creating a new standard for the tech retail experience. In 2003, the iTunes Store was launched, allowing users to buy digital music legally. This transformed the music industry and solidified Apple's ecosystem: hardware, software, and services, all integrated. In the following years, Apple continued launching better versions of the iPod, such as the iPod Mini, iPod Nano, and iPod Touch, dominating the global portable music market. But in 2007, Apple took its boldest step yet. It launched the iPhone, a touchscreen phone without a physical keyboard and with internet access. The iPhone wasn't just a phone, it was a pocket computer. Steve Jobs called it an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator, all in one device. The iPhone's launch revolutionized the mobile phone industry, forcing competitors to rethink their products. In 2008, Apple created the App Store, allowing developers to create and sell apps. This began the era of modern smartphones. In parallel, MacBooks gained popularity, especially among students and creatives, with sleek designs and solid performance. The Mac OS X system continuously evolved, making Macs more stable and intuitive. In 2010, Apple launched the iPad, a new kind of device between a laptop and a smartphone. Despite initial skepticism, the iPad was a sales success and paved the way for a new category of media consumption, reading, and mobile productivity. By the end of 2010, Apple had transformed from just a computer manufacturer to a powerhouse in music, communication, entertainment, and mobility, and one of the world's most valuable companies. In 2011, Apple went through a major change. Steve Jobs, the visionary founder, passed away on October 5th from complications of pancreatic cancer. His death left a deep void in the company, but Tim Cook, his successor as CEO, took the lead with confidence and carried Jobs' vision, taking Apple to new heights. The first major launch after Jobs' death was the iPhone 4S, released in 2011, which introduced Siri, a virtual assistant, a milestone in the advancement of artificial intelligence in mobile devices. In 2012, Apple launched the iPhone 5, the thinnest model with a larger screen, and adopted the Lightning connector, replacing the old 30-pin connector. It also introduced the iPad mini, a smaller and more affordable model of the iPad, and the MacBook Retina, with a high-resolution display. In 2014, Apple debuted the Apple Watch, the company's first smartwatch, expanding its ecosystem to wearables. That year, Apple also acquired Beats by Dre, entering the audio and music streaming market with Apple Music, launched in 2015. In 2016, Apple made a big change with the iPhone 7, removing the headphone jack and pushing the industry to adopt wireless headphones. The company also continued refining its operating systems, with iOS and macOS gaining new integration features and performance improvements. At the end of 2017, Apple celebrated the launch of the iPhone X, which introduced Face ID facial recognition and eliminated the home button, promoting a full-screen design and starting the era of borderless iPhones. In 2018, the iPhone XS, iPhone XS Max, and iPhone XR were released, with improvements in performance, cameras, and design. That year, Apple also became the first company to reach a $1 trillion market value, a historic milestone. In 2019, Apple launched the iPhone 11, with features like the ultra-wide camera and night mode. The company also focused on services, launching Apple TV Plus, an original streaming service, and Apple Arcade, a subscription gaming service. In 2020, Apple announced the transition to Apple Silicon chips in its MacBooks and Macs, starting with the M1 chip in the MacBook Air and Mac Mini, marking a fundamental shift in its computer architecture. In 2020, the company also made history by surpassing a market value of $2 trillion, consolidating itself as one of the world's most powerful and valuable companies. In 2021, Apple launched the iPhone 13 with improvements in cameras and battery life, and continued expanding its services like Apple One and Apple Fitness Plus. It also highlighted the performance of its M1 Pro and M1 Max chips in the new MacBook Pro models. In 2022, the company unveiled the iPhone 14, with the iPhone 14 Pro bringing Dynamic Island. Apple TV Plus and streaming services continued to grow, and Apple entered the financial market with Apple Pay Later. In 2023, Apple announced the Apple Vision Pro, its mixed reality glasses, and continued investing in augmented reality and artificial intelligence. The MacBooks received M2 chips, improving performance. In 2024, Apple released M3 chips and made advancements in sustainability and recycling in its products. In 2025, Apple remains a global leader, focusing on immersive technology, digital services, and sustainability, while the Apple Vision Pro promises to transform how we interact with technology. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell.